a brother, whether you're a mother, you're staying alive, staying alive. Feel the city breaking.
All right, guys, this is Staying Alive, the podcast, and I'm Louie J, and I'm so grateful you're here today. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate if you've started following this podcast, and I really, really enjoy the comments that I've been getting. It's keeping me on track and focused as to why we're here. So thanks for checking us out today.
Right. So how was your week this week? We haven't podcasted in like a week and a half.
Yeah, I feel like I've missed something. It's almost the schedule that's come down for us has been so cool because I really look forward to these sessions. I look forward to getting in and just rapping, and that's what I love about what's happened. But my week has been incredible. I mean, you end up shutting down the cottage and you go into phase 2 of your life, which eliminates, I don't want to call it a burden, but eliminates a very task-heavy environment. I mean, as much as you putter and you socialize at the cottage, it's work. And when you remove a piece of that work, I kind of found myself a little lost last week. However, real work, work that actually generates revenue is increased, and that's great. But I found that I had free time, and that was really a luxury that I haven't enjoyed for a long time. And I'm not saying that during COVID we didn't enjoy free time, but it was different.
That's a different free time for sure. I mean,
entirely different. And to this point, I loved it. It gave me some, putter around the house time, which was great. I value that. And of course, things are getting colder now. We're in toque-wearing weather. Mm. And
were you guys celebrating some birthdays this weekend?
We had both my daughters. Madeline turned 21. Macy turned 18. They're 3 years and a day apart, which I thought was strategic at the beginning. But they quickly realized they can't share birthday cakes after 5 or 6 years old. So we had 2 separate celebrations on 2 separate nights for 2 separate incredible kids. And I'm really, really fortunate. We had our family doing our dinners, and I think probably our best cooked dinners ever this weekend. So we're really getting the knack of food prep and good choices in the house. And
so is this everybody involved, or is it just there's one chef and a bunch of sous chefs?
No, I think actually there's everybody's got their own little contribution. Madeline's showing promise of being quite a talented chef or sous chef. Macy seems to be the baker. Miller's happy to come and help out in any way that he can. And Tammy and I can kind of orchestrate from the background. But we had 2 great nights and a good family kind of parade on Sunday. We had one of those come by and celebrate, have a cupcake, and keep your car moving. Well, in fact, we can have 25 people outside right now. So we had a fall party.
Oh, wow.
Outside in front of the porch. We did chili, hot apple cider, and hot chocolate. So that was a cool way for us to see some of our closest extended friends and an extended family that couldn't be part of our inside 10-person bubble. So, it's been really great. I mean, it's darker in the morning, darker at night, so we're definitely in that territory where things tend to shift in your mind, and work is busy, so we're planning all of our national conferences for the spring. And, of course, the shops in this business, as soon as you see an increase in numbers, it becomes somewhat, it becomes a change. It becomes a shift in people's mindsets. And understandably, everybody's still concerned about, what this does to them and how it affects and what potentially could happen to them in a public environment. And although the protocols are really stringent to begin with for a place like Cabin, a personal services shop like a barber shop or a hairdresser or any of the likes, it's always been very mandated, but more so now, and you still have to overcome the perception that something could potentially go wrong because it could.
Yeah.
And so people are cautious. So the moment that rise in numbers happens, we see a decrease or a decline in bookings, we see cancellations. And so, that's a challenge because the guys that are, and, our gals, and I say guys and gals as if they're one because to me they are, but the guys that are behind the chair here and they're doing their craft need to be busy and their hands need to be occupied. And, when they're not, it becomes very challenging. Like anything else, when you're used to being busy and you're not, you you get a little, squirrely.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than not being busy, especially if you're a person that just loves to be busy.
Yeah, I love to be busy.
Yeah.
want to see that for the same. I want the same for these guys here, and I hope that sooner than later we see the other side of this story.
Yeah, we'll see where that takes us. I noticed that this weekend there was a huge uptick in your social media presence too. Like, you were quite active with the postings there.
Well, it's funny too because for a long while, I don't know, let's rewind 5 or 6 years. It seemed to me that was a priority, where I wanted to post a lot, and I was always interested to find out how many people liked it, and and what kind of influence it had, and was it shared, and I was almost measuring my worth by what the response was, and over the years, I recognize that that's less important to me. It's actually it becomes a bottom priority now, and even more so since I watched and talked about the movie Social Dilemma. I took all the notifications off all of my apps, and that in itself has been a huge shift in the way that I operate, because I realize that I'm not being distracted as much as I was. That's awesome. Like, what a change! Like, a little quick answer made for a completely different output. But then I realized too that maybe I missed a piece of that. So to your point, I started posting some social media things. People have always asked me about, my opinion on either a personal issue or a business issue, and what would I do. And so I've just been keeping notes of things that I think, and I've created like a bunch of quotes.
Yeah.
I think that if I was ever to produce these, it would be advice for young people. And then I quickly realized this is not advice for young people. It's beyond just advising my kids how to do things in life, because that's my priority, to make sure that they've really picked up on some of the things that I've been exposed to and learned. And so it started off as like memoirs to my kids. And what I recognized was, well, maybe this is valuable to other people as well, and even to me in recalling some of the ways that I think about things and how I approach things. So we took it one step further, and we produced, a bunch of images from events that I've been part of, from meetings that I've hosted, or from presentations that I've had on stage. And we applied those quotes to those images. And so that was fun putting those up. And I hadn't really come back to, how many people were there, how many people liked, how many people disliked, what their comments were. But once, because I don't have the notifications anymore, but once I did jump back in, it was like, well, this is really cool.
Yeah.
There's some really positive effect that some of these just ways of being that I'm sharing with people have affected their personal lives and professional too,
Yeah, and those tools are there. I think they're very useful tools. It's just how we manage it moving forward. I mean, we've talked about it in previous podcasts and stuff. But basically, it's how you manage your phone, and by making those simple modifications of removing those notifications and stuff like that. So there's less time spent, but when you are on it, it's like the takeaway is much bigger.
Yeah, well, and it's almost purpose-driven then, and certainly it serves like this moment of entertainment, because I think that's a lot of what this device or these devices do, and that's how they started. And actually, I was on somebody's Facebook this weekend, because I see this massive shift in us and them, and that's actually very alarming and potentially dangerous for us, because people that are recognized as experts in their field have published documents or uploads and posts that have you understand X, and they're an expert, and so we're looking for them for advice and for knowledge. And not always are they truly experts, and they're producing content. And, I hate to use the word fake news, but because it's just gross, like the whole thing is gross, but there is such misinformation out there. And I saw a friend's post this weekend, and of course I might not completely agree. It was around mask wearing, and listen, I don't have any of the answers. I don't subscribe or even suggest that I do to any one particular answer. What I feel right about, I'll do. And I certainly don't want to impose my belief in a pressure moment to say, you have to. But I just want people to be responsible and respectful. And when I saw that, I was being criticized and the community was being criticized and we were being told what we were, and all of a sudden we're all categorized and nobody really knows how we make our own individual decisions. So anyway, my comment was, not always is the information accurate, which we know. Be cautious of your sources, do some research, and, come up with your best solution here so that if you are really, truly trying to help people understand, then let's help educate them. Because I said, we've come a long way since the invention of this internet, and for its initial purpose, which was not much more than porn, that allows us to, jump into this now. And all of a sudden we start, disseminating that information to other people like it is our own belief, or it's so well researched that it's accurate and true. And in fact, it's not, and so I like the idea of using my device and this connection to things that help entertain me, help inspire, help drive positivity, and community and connection, because I think the other side of what's going to happen here is very bleak, and it's not something that I want to be part of. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to say this now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do everything I can to insist that my communities online, the people that I connect with and I follow and they follow me, that we're out to spread good information, positive information, reaffirmation about, how things can be, and then share some insights. So that's really what my thought is. And that's kind of where the idea of posting all those quotes were coming from. And actually this podcast.
Yeah. It's been a inspiring week. That's for sure. We've met a few times, managing the whole uploading of our podcast, getting it out to distribution. We've hit all the big players. It's really super exciting, and I couldn't be prouder because, 1 minute you're not on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, you name all the places where you can get this content, and honestly, in 10 minutes we started to populate all those platforms, and it was like, my God, like we're there with everybody else. We're actually contributing to content now, which is super exciting.
I find my thoughts are echoed. They're the same as yours, and I am really, really, I'm excited, and I feel like we're in a creative development stage, and that for me is one of my favorite places to be, because it allows for contribution and collaboration, and then not knowing the outcome. And so I had a question the other day, as a result of all this activity we went through last week, because it was a lot.
It was great.
Yeah. And I had a comment around, so I'm on episode 4, and I'm like, for what? And my friend says to me, of your podcast. I'm like, how did you find that? And because we haven't really told anybody.
No, we haven't plugged it. Well,
Yeah.
I haven't mentioned it to anybody in my social media feeds, and I'm just kind of waiting for the right time, because still this is like a little plant that we've put the seed,
Yeah,
and you're just
yes.
starting to see the sprout, and it's like, well, it's too quick to go and transplant that into the garden yet.
Yes.
And I kind of feel like, well, we should just hold off a bit, but that time's coming. I definitely want to spread the word, and I think the stuff that we're creating is so informative and helpful to people. I think it's a good listen.
I hope it is. I think I said, if at the very least it should be entertaining, if it's not informative, but if it's both those, then even better. But even the comments that I got from the people that we've shared it with, and all those contributions and those texts and emails they sent me, have really made me realize that maybe we're onto something cool. And, the comment came to me, and this is amazing, because with every positive reinforcement, you'll get the opposite of that, the negative kind of question about why, what are you doing this for? And, oh yeah, everybody's got a podcast today, and that's where everybody's moving. And I'm like, that's great. That's amazing, because we've been given a platform to be able to have conversations. And that's really what the intention was here. And I thought about this too, because once I got that question, I'm like, why am I really doing this? What I thought would be cool is that at some point, 20 years from now, when, my grandkids are teenagers, what a great way to be able to have them understand more of what was happening in our time. And of course, I'm fortunate. I still have a living grandmother who's 92 years old. My family on my mother's side loves to live. They live for a long time.
That's awesome.
And she's an amazing woman. She's a matriarch of our family. And I thought there's, and I said it before on a podcast where it was like, if you want your children to learn anything, have them spend time with seniors, and they end up shifting their minds. Kids ask like repeatedly for things they want. They're very, very direct.
Right.
And, when you have a senior and a child together and the child wants something and the senior tries to navigate what that looks like, it's really cool to see. But, for me, recognizing that spending time with seniors and elders is a very valuable lesson I don't think you realize until you're much older. And, I think that having that is fortunate, and seeing how children operate in that environment is really neat because they just ask for what they want.
Yeah, it's so important to ask and get what you want too. I mean, I think sometimes sometimes when there's a manifestation, when we wanted to do this podcast and we talked about it for months and months, and basically we just decided we mapped out a date and said we're going to sit down, start talking on this day, and there was a lot of prep work behind the scenes to be ready for it, but we had no idea which way it was going to go, but we got what we wanted, and now we want more.
Well, yeah, and I think we collectively outlined what the requirements were. And to your point earlier about how busy it's been in preparing for this, it really has. I would on my own, it certainly would have been an overwhelming task, but with the help of from your side, Frank, and how we're putting this all together, from the team side that's helping coordinate that social media presence and writing the story, which was very challenging. Everybody's got a story, but to actually put that down on paper, it to me was a challenge, because it's like, oh, is this really me? Does it sound like I'm trying to be something I'm not? And to peel back those words and that layer of complexity just so it sounds better was a really valuable task. For me, it was like, no, like this is not, I'm not trying to do or be anything. I want a completely accurate reflection of who I am. And for more than not, it would be so that somebody else out there could draw a relationship, so they could feel like there's somebody else out there just like me, or I think like that. And if that's going to be that point of inspiration, then I want to package this whole thing up so that you could see what I'm doing and recognize that, with very little formal training, actually with no formal training,
Right.
with no, and I'm not at all criticizing when people go for post-secondary or an educated life, because I have huge respect for the people that have a mind for that.
Right.
Mine wasn't set in that specific trajectory, but it allowed me to, recognize that I can do anything I want. And that sounds a little cliche. And when you try to tell your kids that, it almost sounds gross coming out of you. Come on,
Yeah.
like you just want to encourage, yes, yes, yes. But in reality,
It almost sounds like a fairy tale.
it does sound like a fairy tale. But here we are living it. You set your sights, you make the plan, and you dive in. And this is a perfect example of doing exactly that. In the middle of the storm, when everybody's confused, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are very confused by what's next. I think you've got to create that what's next moment. And to your point, you have to manifest it in some form or fashion to see where that takes you down the road. I've often talked about being a futurist and looking into the crystal ball and trying to navigate what's next, or how do I get there? What's going to be a roadblock for me? How am I going to overcome it? I'll clearly put in my mind, what the success looks like for whatever it is I'm doing, whether that's a presentation on stage, whether it's mentoring a small group of guys that want to learn more about, how do you communicate with your partner? How do you improve your relationships? How do you use, tools? Like I've got a bunch of friends that just were not, comfortable around power drills and tools. And so let's just get together on weekend and build something, and all of a sudden everybody walks out of there with like, a little pep in your step, feeling more confident about things. So yeah, I'm grateful that there's a chance for us to do all this. And I think it really was just a matter of saying, let's go for it. Let's see what that looks like and then do it.
But staying on the theme of getting what you want, I've seen you pull off some interesting things like checking into a hotel and getting the best suite in the hotel for the same price. You're going backstage at events. You're getting the front row ticket to concerts. You're being recognized at a concert from the person that's performing on stage. Like those things don't just happen. There's something that you're doing to make that happen, and I want to understand that a little clearer.
Well, it's okay, cool. So yeah, I think for a long while, a lot of those social media posts showed the life that I'm living, and I'm really excited about my life. So I love sharing it. It's not about me trying to flex and show everybody how cool I am,
there is a level of coolness there, but
well, thank you. But, I think it really is a true reflection. I can't even exaggerate the things that I put on because I get into some really amazing situations. And it's not by accident. It's not just that I was standing in the right place for it, because I'm very determined and I'm driven, and I see what that future moment looks like. And, well, if you talk about hotels, I take a lot of pride. First of all, people should recognize that I take a lot of pride in being very, very cheap, in the sense that I don't spend money on things that I don't think add value or aren't worth their weight. I know how much it costs to fill a shop or a store with product. I know how much it costs the merchant. So I'm always looking out for the best deal, and not to nickel and dime somebody or prevent them from making profit. That's always something that's in the back of my mind. Is this fair? What I'm asking for, is it fair? And so knowing that there is a way to be able to get that for less is something I'm really proud of.
I think that's a Canadian way.
Well, I think there's an art to it. It's a persuasive art.
Right.
They say there's, in marketing, it's the art of persuasion. And I think there's a science behind it as well, because the formula that I use is something that I've practiced year after year after year since I was a kid.
Okay, get your pens out. Let's
Ready?
write this down.
This is it. First of all, it always goes back to knowing your audience.
Okay.
Who are you asking, and why are they gonna respond in a way that's gonna favor you?
I'm painting this scenario right now. Me standing at a check-in counter
At a hotel.
at a hotel in Vegas.
The best.
All right.
This is my favorite, because the person that's on the other side of the counter is in that position likely because they love making people happy. So understanding your audience is knowing that person's here to make me happy. And I see so many people miss the mark on what the request is. They come in there and they say some fluffy, buttery conversation with the reservation clerk or whoever's behind the desk, and you can tell right away that it's not authentic. It's meant for them to get to what they're looking for. And I think that's the other part of this right away, is that you have to be authentic in your ask. You understand who they are, be authentic in what you're asking. So you're standing at a check-in counter in Vegas.
Does the ask come right out of the gate, or does it work into the conversation?
This is the art of persuasion, knowing when. Okay. So, they have a task and a responsibility, and you really can't be disruptive in having them do what they do, because that becomes overwhelming. And they're no longer focused on getting you to happy. They're focused on doing their job. So I always let them do what they need to do. The conversations are almost always the same. Hey, listen, this is my first time at the Bellagio or the Venetian or whatever that hotel brand is. It's my first time here. I know you understand it and know it intimately. So can you tell me what room you would like to stay in? And so now I involve them in the conversation. I allow them to give me their insights. And that's going back to them wanting to make their experience happy. So the conversation is fluid. If there's a massive lineup, which is usually the case behind you, there's a one-on-one moment that you can get there and you can connect as humans. And so I always, in those conversations, give them a scenario like, this is my first time. This is my wife's first time. This is our anniversary. So we now can share a moment together that's important to me. And when they recognize that importance, then they come back with something that's going to help. And so not always will they come back and say, oh, I would stay in, the sarcophagus suite or whatever it is. They give me their insights, and now that becomes a learning for me, because if I don't have a chance to get into that suite now, I know it for next time. So I'm grateful.
Right.
And then my next question is, how is it possible that I can get into that room at the same rate that I'm in right now? And this goes back to the age-old adage, which is, you don't ask, you don't get.
Right.
And so to me, it's a matter of understanding what am I asking for, being clear about it, seeing what's possible, and then engaging them in the conversation, having them be part of the outcome as if they provided a solution. And I'll tell you right now, in that conversation, there's an authenticity and there's a realness and there's an excitement from the clerk's part. There's an excitement from my part. We're celebrating. And if given the wherewithal that they can make that decision or make that happen, they almost always do, because that now gives me a chance to be able to talk favorably about the brand, about the room. And of course, I'll post that and show that on social media. So this is a massive win-win. If I was to propose something that doesn't have a positive outcome for the people that I'm trying to do it with, then I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fall short, and I would learn for the next time how to do it better. So for me, it's really being a real human being and putting ourselves in each other's shoes, having them share in my excitement for this, and then making sure they recognize that there's a win. And I see people making that mistake all the time, where they basically come in and promise that something's going to happen, that if you don't give me an upgrade, I'm going to go stay at another hotel down the road. And, that stuff is like so off the mark.
So that's like a demand rather than an ask.
Yeah, it's a demand. And that's where I think people they'll realize that the push is going to meet with resistance. So in anything, when your boss says to you, I expect you to do this, and they've pushed you, or, say for instance, you wanted to have a meeting and you thought it was a good idea to share that with your colleagues, and your senior management came down with, we need to have a meeting. It's got to be about this. All of a sudden you're defensive, and the backs go up, and you're like, I wanted a meeting, but I don't want to have it under those circumstances. I'm not part of this meeting. I don't want to be part of it. And you become resentful and you push back. Because I think when a push comes, then people push back.
Right.
And so when people come in demanding and complaining, and, the food wasn't exactly right at the restaurant, and now I must see a manager, all of a sudden, just think about what happens there. Something was delayed, the kitchen was short-staffed, and now all of a sudden you're waiting for your meal, and the conversation at the table that was supposed to be celebratory turns into a focus on what's wrong.
Complaints, yeah.
Complaints, and now each other is complaining to each other about, how terrible this is. And
that gets there very quickly, too.
Like that.
I've been in those situations, like, whoa, what happened?
What happened? And we were just talking about, how great it was that the grass was growing a minute ago. And now we're talking about how pissed off we are because the waiter hasn't been here for 2.5 minutes. And then that explodes, it ignites. Then you need to see the manager, and then you're like, we did. And in fact, what really could happen there is, like, I know you're busy. I know the restaurant's overpopulated or you got too many customers and not enough staff. You begin to be them for a minute. You employ empathy, and you let them know that, hey, listen, we're going to be okay, but do me a favor, just please check on us, because this could turn out really poorly and not a good experience, but I want to help you make it great for us. And I'll tell you, that approach, that's the difference. That's that persuasion to have them. And I didn't ask for anything other than just make sure that you come by and check on us. We're going to be fine. Like, go take care of the ones that are demanding and are yelling at you, because we can see it. This is obviously an off night. We're going to hold you to it like it's the way that it works all the time. And all of a sudden, there's a visit from the manager. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. We're really slammed tonight. We didn't expect it. One of our cooks was sick. And, hey, listen, you don't understand why that happened, but by understanding how you can be part of it and you can share the experience and make it less painful for them, I'll tell you, the rewards that come to you are unimaginable. And to me, that's that's knowing what you want and how to navigate getting there, and so I always have the best rooms in the hotels. I think I've only ever been shut down once, and that was simply because of capacity. But my favorite upgrade was Edmonton, Canada. We're doing an opening for an electronics store, and we hired a very, very popular rock star musician, branding mogul. I won't say the name.
Wow.
But I asked for a couple of things there. One was, first in negotiating the deal with the rock star and television celebrity, it was, will you accept a personal invitation for dinner on Friday night, the night before we do the grand opening? Because he was there to sign autographs.
Right.
And that dinner reservation was accepted with a couple of conditions. One, we had to be in an incredible steakhouse. And at that time I was eating meat, so there was no compromise for the integrity. But even at that, he would have been our guest. So my partners and I put together a great night at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, which is in a former bank, like an old building in Edmonton, really cool. And so that was a condition. The other one was we had to have pretty faces, which was amazing because I never expected to hear that. But all of a sudden now we shared with the win-win, so that we would have the right people to kind of accompany this environment and this person to make sure that he was seen in the right light. And if you don't ask, you don't get. And so we asked, and I got to have an audience and a private dinner with one of the world's largest rock legends in the history of music. And the insights and the conversations and the stories that came from that night are endless. I could talk about them forever. And
I'm curious, and I'm sure everybody listening is curious too, who that person was.
Well, I mean, and it's not a compromise.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about numbers and all that other fun stuff, but it was Gene Simmons of Kiss.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I'm of the pedigree that the Kiss Army would have been a very important part of my childhood.
Right.
For a time there, Kiss double platinum, man.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled. My partners negotiated the deal, and we put together the ask. And it's amazing because I learned a lot of lessons in that short period of time. We ended up being in company with each other for the weekend. The next night, we ended up accompanying him to go look for musicians in Edmonton.
Oh, wow.
Which was very cool.
Yeah, that's
because
one of his things that he does on a regular basis too.
That just getting back to getting what you want.
Yeah.
When you think about what must go through his mind on any moment, it's a matter of getting exactly what you want, because he negotiated multiple media interviews, or I guess his people had him lined up from breakfast till sundown with, here's your schedule. We're going to maximize your time there. He came for one particular reason, to be with us and to do our program, which was already a massive accomplishment for our client. We were very, very proud that we were able to negotiate that. And then beyond that, from the minute he landed to the minute he got back on a plane, it was business, and it was like flick the switch, and he's after exactly what he wanted. We ended up, or not we, he discovered a bunch of talented groups that night after our event, and we were there alongside of him as, there's not Gene Simmons' entourage, but we were part of that, and that was hugely exciting. And so that was a matter of, if I didn't ask, we wouldn't have been part of that. And, and he reciprocated and invited us out to be part of his. And
wow.
It was huge. It was really cool. And I learned a very valuable lesson that weekend, because I came, like him, with the intention of doing business. And so you were brought in for one reason, and I thought it would be cool if I pitched an idea to Gene Simmons. Not cool. Not cool right off the bat. I mean, because although I thought I was doing really well in my art of negotiation and the persuasion, and having people take the side that I was looking for, I completely forgot my rules. I was overwhelmed by the fact that I could get an audience with such a decision maker, such a center of influence, that my idea was to create this, rock school, and have these multiple outlets around the world where And this was the height of, like, American Idol was just really hitting its max, its massive interest. And so here I thought there was a bunch of kids around the world, or young adults that were looking to pursue music, and they needed almost like a place. And so music schools, of course, existed, but I wanted to do my version of the School of Rock, and I wanted him to endorse it. And I came with a business plan, and I, first of all, I went against all my rules.
Right.
I asked him right off the bat. It was like I came to the dance and I was already, breakdancing in the middle of the floor, and they hadn't started playing the song yet. I was out of sync with the timing, and then the ask wasn't clear as to what that would be for him. And so he said to me, I said, "Hey, Gene, I got a concept that I wouldn't mind sharing." He goes, "Concepts are for losers." And I went, whoa. And he goes, "Listen, unless you could tell me how many zeros are before the decimal point, I don't listen to concepts."
Wow.
Yeah. So I can imagine how many people approach him with their idea on any given day. And he obviously has been through enough of them to have a very stock, but clear answer. So go away, come back with something that makes sense. Tell me how many zeros and who's signing the check, and save the concept for a true, tried business operation that's already got a case study behind it. Like, don't bring me something that's half baked. And so I took my my plan, I rolled it up, I put it in my jacket, and we went out to find. At the time, it was a new band that was coming into the Canadian marketplace. It was a great lesson for me to realize that timing's everything. If I don't make clear what the benefit is to both sides, then that's likely going to get overlooked, because that's an important piece of the persuasion. And I didn't have options. I had nothing. I really wasn't prepared. But that really only happens once. And if you let it happen twice, then that's really your problem. But it was a great learning for me, and a memory that I'll never forget, because that same day I was able to negotiate the biggest suite in the hotel. And that suite in the hotel, it was the Fairmont. And the Fairmont has a suite that was, I think, if not built specifically for the Queen's visit, then in and around that type of story, where it was reserved for the
royalty.
I mean, come on. So, when we walk into that room and there's, a 20-foot or something, Christmas tree in the middle of the room, because it's that big and that grand. And it was through the fine art of negotiation and slight persuasion that ended up getting that room for the same rate that we were paying for, a junior suite.
Well, I want to know the secret of it, because let's get back to the role playing of me standing there at the check-in counter. The person at the check-in counter recommends the suite that they would stay in. How do I take that information and put it in our favor?
Well, I think you've got to be willing to play. And so this will likely cost you more. And if you go into that with the mindset that you're prepared to spend more money, then that's an easy solution, because this suite is normally an upgrade of $200, but we're not at capacity tonight. We can get you in for $100. So that's an easy one.
So you always just follow the lead of what they're presenting to you on the table.
Yes, and if it just goes beyond your threshold for paying, like for me, I don't need to spend any more than I already have, because chances are the hotel that I've chosen is already, priced at market, which is more than a motel or Super 8. So to that point, you just got to know where your threshold is. And if it falls in line, then, of course, that's the right way to do it. And, of course, a note for anybody traveling to Vegas, there's always an upgrade available for next to nothing at the counter.
Really?
So here's a good piece of advice. Whenever booking anywhere, book the lowest possible rate at the lowest possible room type. And then when you're on site, have the conversation. Be authentic. Be real. Let them know that you're very excited about enjoying what they've built here. And if it's not free, it's next to free, especially Vegas. I mean, you can be doing room rates that would be $200 and $300 more a night online, and then when you're at the hotel, it actually only costs you $50 extra to upgrade. So you can get to to live that moment, that, you know, incredible Vegas or New York or LA moment where you're in the best of the best, but you've spent it like you were in something less, which is great. And that's for me. If in fact you don't have that threshold for pain, then again, getting back to the ask, you know, so is there anything that I can do to be in that rate for the night? You know, and if I blame this on, you know, my wife, I'll say, you know, something like, she doesn't really travel as much as I do. So this I want to make really special for her, which is the absolute truth. I want the experience, because normally when I'm traveling, it's for conferences, or it's to do presentations or to be part of a group, so a trade show. And so if and ever we can get the chance to travel together and she can enjoy the amenities of the hotel or where we're at, the community that we're in or the town or the city, then I take advantage of that. And so I really do want her time to be, you know, enjoyable there. So that's the truth. And so almost always they'll make sure they come on your side. That even goes so far as to getting past the gatekeeper at the concert.
Yeah,
know?
that's an important one too, because I mean, those are two different conversations and transactions there too, right?
Well, and I'm talking about taking back a couple of years now when it was everything for me to find myself on the right side of the red rope. And I would focus on it. If there was a fashion show coming to town, I would do everything I could to get into that front row, to get invited to the party. And quite often, I was never part of that group. I didn't have any reason to be there other than my personal love and interest for what was going on. I mean, I love social environments. So if you're hosting, you know, the world's coolest party, I want to be there.
Right.
I've negotiated my way into, you know, Paris Hilton's birthday and private after party, you know, at the Hard Rock in Vegas. And, you know, I found myself at the front row of LG Fashion Week enough times where it was the hustle that got me there. It was being insistent and seeing myself sitting there and then making sure that people that could get me there were part of my conversation. Some people could look at that as manipulation. In fact, to me, it was an exercise of the truth, you know, because I've been there so often and so long now. It didn't take too long for the invitations to start coming in, and you create yourself in the center of these circles. And if you're not interesting and you're not dynamic and you don't have a personality that suits that, then that's going to be short-lived. It just so happens that if you give me a chance to be in an environment or a party or a social place, I not only have had the chance to light it up and to be part of that excitement, but I truly am interested. I am actually not doing anything out of my normal, and I'm just me there. And it just so happens that for a lot of people, they like the way I perform. And in a lot of respects, they don't recognize that it's not really a performance.
Right.
It's just me.
Just who you are.
You know, I love the dance. I love the look. I love the media backdrops. I love all of that stuff because it's exciting. Does it mean anything? Not really, other than there's a personal satisfaction. So to me, that's valuable and important. But I know that I've made people feel very comfortable in their environments as a result of my participation. So
It's almost like having the right attitude when you're going to, you know, everybody's getting ready to go out for the evening. It's having that attitude that we're going to go on like this incredible fun night. We have no idea which way it's going to go versus we're just going to go stand there and nurse my beer all night and just kind of watch what's going on. It's like you really do have a choice which way you want this evening to go.
You do. And my thrill, actually, I have it in a lot of different areas. One is garage selling. I have a thrill of finding the right thing for the right price, and that's a whole other world. But the thrill for me is to get in and then to be part of that mix. And you do have a choice. You can stand over there and watch. I've never been a spectator. It's always been for me to be in the game. And I think a piece of this, if I was to impart any kind of advice at all, it's to move with confidence. You have to have confidence. And even if it's you to muster up everything in you to be able to stand in front of that gatekeeper or that door host or the security guard and make him realize that there's a reason for you to be in here. And part of it for me was, how I looked. There's already a story that comes when I'm walking up without saying a word. So, I would make sure that wherever I was going, I was the right solution or the right answer to be able to navigate my way through that door, because I had no reason or right to be there almost always. But you'd find me in the private after party at Tao for U2 with Bono and David Schwimmer and Daniel Lanois, and all of a sudden I'm shaking hands with these icons. And at the time it was huge for me. It was like, well, for anybody, I mean, you're meeting icons that, shape the way we look at things in life and entertain us.
Yeah.
And that was so exciting. And I was with a bunch of my guys that were there with me. We had a work weekend that was really big, and we were in Vegas and we were celebrating. And what happened there was, we saw the concert. I ended up getting tickets for everybody. We went and celebrated, and then I said, we're going to get into the after party. And of course, they by this time in our time together knew that was 100% true. It was going to happen because I was confident, I was driven, and it goes so far as to what did I do to get even down that road. I mean, the amount of phone calls that we made just to be able to get on somebody's list, and they all failed. And that didn't stop me. I was determined. We showed up. And when we showed up, you end up negotiating what the environment looks like and where you could put yourself without being, seen, recognized, or heard. And this happened to be a back hallway that got into a room where there was a security guard, but the security guard at the front was being approached by everybody. So his answer was immediately no.
Right.
Whereas I found that there was another entrance that was less trafficked. It's going to be less a challenge. You can have a conversation with the security guy, and then you show up and you make your case. And in this case, it had to be different than what they've heard all night long.
Okay.
If you're going in with the same old, just like at the front counter, if you're asking the same question that everybody else asks, good luck. You're likely not going to get what you're after. So you have to recognize that there is an art to the conversation. There is a need for you and I to be the same people, so that you can recognize I'm not trying to be better than you, because I'm not. I'm not arrogant. I am confident, and there's a big difference between those two.
Right.
And once you realize that your confidence can actually be your superpower, then you start to use it to your advantage over and over and over again. And I found myself, at the BlackBerry 10 launch in Dubai, at the bottom of the tower, and people are dying to get into this launch, and here I am standing with people that in a different country even, and the comment that I got from the gatekeeper there was, "I love your mustaches."
The many of them.
It's if I had 4 mustaches. I had one mustache and it was curled, and that was the point of connection. And it was as simple as that, because that was a laugh, and we're exchanging. And now I was quite clear, and I always am, I'm honest. My goal is to make sure I'm in here, so can you help me? And by simply asking with that sense of authenticity, that recognition that you're really in control here. I'm not here to do anything wrong or bad. Can you somehow make this happen? And so, I found myself having an incredible time at that event. Ended up just really taking it all in. And then it was recommended to me that at that party that I take a trip to Abu Dhabi and spend time in this natural reserve at a hotel chain called Banyan Tree. And the same thing happened again. Likely the best villa in Banyan Tree was my villa.
Wow.
Where, the cantaloupe were coming up to drink out of my sinker pool, my tub that was outside on the deck. It was just like
Wow.
unthinkable. But it's all based loosely on the confidence and the fact that you're being authentic and respectful.
And I think that translates even to people that are starting businesses and or have started a business and is trying to grow, is keeping that same mindset in everything, like negotiating your rent for your facility if you have a storefront.
I've been successful in my career in presenting concepts that not always wanted to be heard. And I think that gets back to how you position them, what kind of options you give in that presentation to your audience. Like, did you give them something to think about? Even when it comes down to, well, you mentioned rent. You know, I've been fortunate in that any of the locations that we've occupied for any of the businesses, they're landmark deals. They've never been done before. You know, we're in one of the largest centers in Canada with a deal that nobody else shares, because I sat down to negotiate with the intention that they'll recognize how much they can be helping us by simply looking at this differently. And it was clear. When I make my case, I want you to understand why it's important to me. I want to be respectful in my ask, and I want you to treat this like partnerships. And so that persuasion, if it doesn't get you exactly what you're looking for, it gets you a close version of it.
Right.
It certainly moves the needle from where they came in. And I think that dance is very exciting. It's something that I love to be part of, right down to presenting an idea that might not be well received, or you think that it's going to be taken negatively because it doesn't have a great output for the person that you're involving. So that might not have been a win-win, but the presentation of that idea is about making sure it's done confidently, making sure they recognize that you're an expert. Maybe in the first 2 minutes of that conversation, make a point that had them learn something, so they know that there's reason for them to listen to you and want to do something with you. And that goes as far like a sales manager talking to his team or her team, right down to, you know, if it's a hard negotiation for something that is beyond financial, maybe it requires somebody's input or their trust, you know, then you really need to get back to that authenticity and why it is you're doing it, and have them be part of that solution. And quite often they'll actually deliver beyond your expectation, you know?
Do you recommend any type of books or courses or anything like that that probably speak more in depth about, is this basically the art of negotiating, what you're presenting to us?
Well, I wouldn't be able to recommend any books because that's just not my space.
You don't
However,
read?
I don't spend time reading, which is something I wish I did, but it's never been of interest because I don't learn that way. But I have, for me, it's just been years of practice. And the results just keep on motivating me to be better at it. So I would first say that, you know, try on your own, you know, but I think taking somebody's advice is a great idea. And I know that the internet is peppered with the art of persuasion, negotiation management, how to get what you want. I mean, there's likely 100, 1,000 podcasts that at some point had somebody speaking, you know, about the tactics,
right,
and how-tos, you know, whereas I can only tell you about the benefits and the outcome, because I think it's going to be individual, and everybody, at least if you're taking anything away from this today, it's that to recognize that there is a human on the other end of this negotiation, and they want desperately to help you. They want to be looked at as a contribution. I'll give you another example, because it was a great lesson for my son Miller. He wanted to see Lady Gaga, and it was his birthday or something that we were celebrating. And I thought, well, those are expensive tickets, but I'm still going to go ahead and do that because it was important to him. So I broke every rule that I would ever want to follow. I bought tickets online from a private seller, and don't transfer money, and don't do this and don't do that. Everything that I know made a lot of sense was out the window because I was manipulated. I was made believe that this is a mother that can't take her daughter to the show and now has tickets available, but only has a 15-minute lunch and needs to be able to do this transaction now. The show's tonight. I bought the tickets, and there were no tickets.
Ugh.
It was terrible. It was such a letdown. I had to call Miller and say, we can't do it tonight, bud. I'm really sorry. We just got ripped off. It cost me a fair bit of money. I think $250 a ticket.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, beyond my threshold for pain, knowing that I'm cheap, frugal. But I decided that we were going to go downtown anyway because it was something that was very exciting for him. And I felt like I kind of burst the balloon. And that was my bad, where if I just went through the regular channels to begin with, chances are we would have been in a seat.
You would have been in there, yeah.
Here's where the magic happened. We stood in line. There was still tickets to the box office. We moved up and I said, how much for 2 tickets anywhere in the stadium? And I think it was $280 was all they had available. It was like, now we're going to be dumping, after $500, we're going to be dumping $600. Like, this is way too much money for me. And, I said, I explained the situation that we just got ripped off online. And is there anything else that's available that could help us? So I brought them into my world in the conversation. They felt, compassionate. There was empathy for sure. And I don't think we can do anything for you, sir. I'm really sorry. And I said, well, listen, that's okay. I'm going to go see if maybe I can buy scalpers. So Miller and I, head down, walked out to the center of the area there, still within eye distance, I guess, or an eye shot. They saw us. And all of a sudden I get the tap on the shoulder, and it's the guy from behind the counter that says, I just talked to my manager and we got something for you.
What?
Yeah. And so, here we are and this story gets turned around where we get to stand up in front of there. And he said, I just told my manager about you guys getting ripped off. And I saw how sad your son was. And so I want to help.
Wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't a manipulation. It was a truth.
Right.
And it was authentic. And Miller was sad. And we'd already blown a bunch of cash. So good morning.
Hey, good morning, cabin.
Good morning, cabin.
Take it. Oh, somebody got it.
Somebody got it. We're okay. Business is moving along.
It's happening.
Yeah. So the beautiful part there is that, I was able to show Miller how compassion moves people, how the want to help made somebody take a situation that wasn't great and made it good. We had floor seats for $85 because they were reserved for some group, and there was no chance they were all using these. The concert was starting in 5 minutes or whatever, so we ended up covering the costs or whatever their costs were. It was $85. We were on the floor, moving from stage to stage to stage because Gaga has this really cool stage set up, and my son's eyes lit up, and I was just so happy because I was able to turn a bad situation into good, not because of me, but because somebody else was employed by me to be part of our situation. And I explained to Miller that those 2 people right there felt great as a result of helping us. And what a good feeling it was for us because, we saw that somebody could really lift you up. And that's really where it's a matter of getting what you want. It's a matter of understanding how it is we can all benefit from this. This is not a give it to me, I deserve it moment. This is a chance to be able to say, hey, what's within your power? What can you do to help? And if we didn't ask, we, of course, wouldn't have got.
Right. Perfect. Well, it's been an incredibly busy last couple of weeks with the meetings together, getting the podcast launched, putting up all those episodes. We've been working on a whole bunch of different platforms. One of the things we like to do at the end of every podcast is maybe a recommend on what app that you're using now that's kind of helping you benefit your navigation through the week or the months. Anything on top of mind that you could recommend?
Yeah, I think that in negotiating and navigating through 3 or 4 businesses at any given time, I like to consolidate everything and bring it down to one line of communication. Otherwise, you're lost. At least I am. And so we've used over the last, I guess, 6 or 7 months now. We found it maybe just before COVID. Maybe it's longer. But it's the Slack app. And now I can consolidate all of my businesses into one line of communication. It shares my calendar. I can have one-on-one messages, one-to-many messages. You can create small groups in there so you can blast out communication. So I think that's very productive, and it's been a great benefit to us.
Cool. Looking forward to the next week. So just a message to everybody who's listening. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and all the places where you get your podcasts. Like and subscribe because we really appreciate it, and we want to keep doing this for a long, long time.
I agree. This is Staying Alive. I'm Louie J. That's Frank there behind the deck, and thanks for tuning in, everybody. You have a great day.
Thanks.